Welcome to my very first Lost. Season 6 episode review videos. This is the Season 6 premiere. There were 2 episodes that aired when this episode originally aired, so this will be 2 episode reviews. Before I get into that, though, pretty important, you aren't caught up to the point where I am in rewatching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention, as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, if you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already seen the TV series Lost 3 other times. It's in my top 5 favorite TV shows of all time, as a matter of fact. Want to rewatch it and let it resonate and give you all detailed reviews of this, but I'm not the only one that's currently watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffin Man, who you see in my comment section for Dexter Original Sin, Dexter New Blood, Breaking Bad, Lucifer, and every once in a while a physical media related video, is actually watching Lost for the very first time. So, he's in for a real treat. Join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show in the comment section. However, I don't want to see any spoilers past these episodes in the comment section for this video. So with all that said, this will be Lost, Season 6, Episode 1, and Season 6, Episode 2. The titles of the episodes are LAX Part 1 and LAX Part 2, and this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watch the episode. So we start with what's called a flash sideways, where the characters never made it to the island, and there'll be more on that later in the episode. But Jack looks out the window of passing clouds. He's on an airplane, and Cindy returns as the flight attendant and asks him how his drink is, and then Jack smiles. He admits it's not very strong. She gives him a small bottle of vodka and asks him to keep it between them. So Jack does not know Cindy at this point, but Jack is on a plane, and yeah, Cindy's there too, but we haven't seen Cindy for a long time. Another flash sideways scene. Rose assures Jack that it's normal because there's some turbulence, and jokes that her husband always says planes are meant to be in the air. They chat for a while before the turbulence worsens, and Jack grips the armrest with an interesting look. However, the plane passes through, and Bernard returns safely from the bathroom, commenting that, remind me to hold it next time, will you? I almost died in the bathroom. Now I know how laundry feels in the dryer. Rose replies, I missed you. And Bernard says, I missed you too, beautiful, and kisses Rose. So now, Rose and Bernard are on there, Cindy's on there, but Jack has no idea who they are. And another flash sideways scene, we have Jack gets up to go to the lavatory, the bathroom on the plane, and inspects himself carefully in the mirror, noticing to his confusion that there's a small bleeding cut on his neck. Going back to his seat, Desmond is there, who switched to the seat next to Jack while Jack was in the bathroom. Jack struggles to remember whether they have met before, but neither can place it. Then they view the shifts out the window and down into the ocean, where the remains of the island are shown, now submerged beneath the Pacific Ocean underwater. The remains of the Dharma barracks and security fence are visible, and a Dharma shark is seen swimming near a 4-toed foot, revealing the island's submergence. So these characters are on this plane, but they have no recollection of each other yet. Desmond doesn't remember Jack. Jack doesn't remember Desmond. Doesn't remember see you in another life, brother. All that stuff. Back to the island. Finally, Kate eyes open. Upon awakening, she nearly falls from a tree branch she's on, which is a considerable distance from the ground. She climbs back onto the branch. Her hearing is not good at the moment. She yells and then shakes her head and messes with her ears, but her hearing does not return. She climbs out of the tree. The only sounds are those of her breathing, a high-pitched ringing sound, and her shuffling down the tree. She yells, hello, and her hearing finally returns. She finds Miles, who is also having trouble hearing. I can't hear you. Are your ears ringing? And he is talking louder than normal. Kate sees the broken airlock entrance to the Swan Station, but couldn't open it, realizing they're back in 2007. So whatever Juliet did at the end of the last season, everything is now changed, and we have two different timelines again, with them on the island still, and them, or at least some characters, on a plane, but with no recollection of each other. So, they trek back to the hatch to find it completely obliterated, as it was after Desmond turned the failsafe key 3 years before, making it clear they are now in the present time. Kate sees both Jack and Sawyer lying in the grass. She chooses to go to Jack's aid. Jack shakes his head and wakes up. Sawyer kicks him in the head, and he falls down into the hatch hole. Kate climbs down into the hole, and Sawyer yells back at Jack, "You son of a bitch! You were wrong!" Clearly furious at the attempt to detonate the Jughead in 1977 only resulted in them returning to the present time, and Kate tries to hold him back. Back to another sideways, Jack heads into the laboratory where Edward Mars waits for his friend. Kate bursts out the door and runs into Jack, apologizing and taking his pen before the marshal hauls her back to her seat. Kate receives her meal, but Marshal Mars won't allow her a knife or a fork. Just then, Sawyer brushes past the marshal, and Kate hides her hands underneath the tray table, presumably to conceal her handcuffed wrists. Sawyer shares a meaningful look with Kate before apologizing and moving on. Sawyer goes back to his seat where Leslie Arzt is back, is pestering Hurley to do an impression of the character in his Mr. Cluck's commercial. Arzt finds it hysterical, then asks how a guy like him came to own a major corporation like Mr. Cluck, and Hurley replies that he won the lottery and happens to like chicken, leading a downcast Arzt to quickly excuse himself. Sawyer warns Hurley not to share his lottery win with strangers, saying it will make them try to take advantage of him. But Hurley brushes off. That can't happen, Hurley replies. Nothing bad ever happens to me because I'm the luckiest man alive. So something has changed with our characters. Now Hurley's not afraid of anything. There's no numbers that haunt Hurley. And like the lottery has done all the good things to him. And Jack and Kate don't recognize each other. Sawyer and Kate don't recognize each other. And yeah. And the marshal's back. Arzt is back. And yeah. Back to the island, Hurley and Jin wake up next to the Dharma van with Saeed, who is bleeding from the bullet wound in his stomach. Jin steps out of the van. Hurley points out that the sky turned from day to night. Jin informs Hurley that he has just found a flashlight. Jin explains that they must have time traveled, as it was similar to his own previous experience. At the remains of the Swan Station, Jack concludes that the bomb must have gone off, but Sawyer yells back that he wouldn't still be here if a nuclear explosion had occurred. Sawyer vows to Kate that he will kill Jack for being responsible for Juliet's death at some point. And then Juliet is suddenly heard screaming from underneath the wreckage. The survivors attempt to move the records, but there is a I-beam blocking the way. And then Hurley is attending to Saeed when Jacob appears in the jungle. Back to our flash forward, or flash sideways, I guess I should say. Smiling, the sun gazes at Rose and Bernard a few rows ahead. She tells Jin that they look so happy together, and then Jin tells her to button the top of her sweater. So now Jin is back to being an asshole, and yeah. Also in this flash sideways, John reads a safety brochure leading Boone sitting nearby to say it won't be any use if the plane goes down in the ocean, and John replies a good pilot could negotiate a water landing and the fuel tanks would keep the plane afloat until the survivors could get onto the life rafts. They strike up a conversation. Boone explains he was in Australia to get his sister out of a bad relationship, but she didn't want to come back with him. Locke says that he went on a walkabout for 10 days in the Australian outback, which greatly impresses Boone. And then Boone remarks if the plane does crash, he'll stick with Locke. And then we have Frogurt is sleeping in the seat next to Locke between him and Boone. So we've got now Boone back. So all these characters apparently never made it to the island, and this is what would have happened if they wouldn't have made it to the island. And then we have the Man in Black as John Locke picks up the blooded knife Ben had used to stab Jacob. He tears off a piece of fabric from the floor and uses it to clean the knife. He tells a visibly disturbed Ben that he can stop staring at the fire and that Jacob is gone. Ben asks why Jacob didn't fight back, and then the Man in Black replies that Jacob must have known that he was beaten and asks Ben to go outside and tell Richard that he needs to talk to him. Ben inquires as to what they have to discuss. The Man in Black states that it is between me and Richard. Then Lana and Bram discuss entering the statue with Richard. Richard tells them firmly that they cannot go in and that only those summoned by Jacob may enter. And then Ilana replies that she and Bram are summoned to the island by Jacob and thus should be allowed inside. Ben comes out of the statue and is immediately questioned by Ilana and Richard. When he informs Richard that Locke wants to speak with him, Richard becomes furious with Ben and shoves him onto the beach next to John Locke's corpse, revealing to Ben for the first time that John Locke is indeed dead, and whoever he's speaking with is not really John Locke. Jacob tells Hurley that he died an hour ago. Jacob then tells Hurley he needs to take Saeed and the guitar case he had given him previously to the temple. And then Jin, together with Hurley and the injured Saeed, return to the Swan. And then we go back to our flash sideways. Cindy makes an announcement asking for any doctors on board to press their call buttons and eventually comes over to Jack to help. One of the passengers has been in the lavatory, the bathroom, for half an hour or an hour and a half, and is no longer responding to any knocks. With the help of Saeed and the flight attendant, they force open the door to find Charlie sitting unconscious on the toilet. Jack can tell something is blocking his airway and cannot reach it. He tries to use the pen in his pocket to perform a I can't speak all of a sudden. Tracheometry, but realizes it is mysteriously gone. So Kate took Jack's pen. After a few minutes, Jack manages to clear his airway, which he was blocked by a bag of heroin, and revive Charlie. However, Charlie is very displeased with Jack when he discovers himself alive. And then back to the island, they remove the wreckage covering Juliet. Sawyer climbs into the hole beneath the wreckage and briefly talks to Juliet. After tending to Saeed, Jack realizes that he's going to die, until Hurley tells him that Jacob told them that they can save Saeed by bringing him to the temple. Jack asks, "Who's Jacob?" But Hurley responds that isn't important at the moment. And then shortly after, Bram grabs Ben and hauls him back to the statue. Despite Richard's protests, Bram, along with others, enter Jacob's chamber and point their guns at the Man in Black. Bram asks him where Jacob is, to which the Man in Black responds that Jacob is dead, and as such, they are all now free. Upon hearing this, Bram and his men become enraged, and fire several shots at the Man in Black. One shot appears to strike him, after which he disappears behind a column. As Bram investigates the room, he finds the bullet that was thought to have hit the Man in Black lying on the ground. Confused, he turns around just as the smoke monster enters the room. There is a brief firefight, but the monster quickly overpowers 3 of the 4 men, killing them. Bram produces a container of ash, which he proceeds to spread around himself in a circle. This circle is supposed to protect Bram from the monster's direct advances toward him, so the smoke monster dislodges a chunk of rock from the statue interior, which knocks Bram out of the circle of ash. Bram, now vulnerable, is grabbed by the monster and thrown through Jacob's room, where he is impaled on a piece of wood and killed. During the entirety of the fight, Ben cowers in the corner, looking on in shock. At the conclusion of the fight, the Man in Black, once again as John Locke, reappears behind Ben and states, "Sorry that you had to see me like that," thus definitely revealing the link between the smoke monster, the Man in Black, and post-Azura Flight 316, John Locke. Juliet mumbles something about getting coffee sometime and smiles as she says, "We can go Dutch," and then Juliet wants James to kiss her. "You got it, Blondie," James says, and she says, I have to tell you something. It's really important." And then Juliet dies from her injuries. No, not happy about that. Then back to our flash sideways as Charlie is led in handcuffs to his seat. He angrily tells Jack he was supposed to die. Jack returns to his seat and notices Desmond is no longer sitting in his row. He asks Rose and Bernard where he is, but Rose simply responds that they were asleep. And then the captain announces that they are on final approach to Los Angeles and instructs the passengers to buckle up, leading Rose to remark to Jack that they are almost home. Saeed looks at a picture of Nadia as the other passengers move their seats upright and buckle their seatbelts. The plane touches down and pulls safely into the gate. Once there, police come to escort Charlie away. Boone shakes hands with John Locke before leaving. Rose and Bernard are very much happy as a couple, followed shortly by Sun and Jim, who appear to be very unhappy again. And then Kate leaves in handcuffs with Edward Mars, leaving Jack and John Locke as the last two passengers on the plane. Jack shares a nod with John Locke before leaving, reminiscent of a similar nod they shared when boarding in Sydney. After Jack leaves the plane, two Oceanic employees bring a wheelchair onto the plane and push a still paralyzed John Locke off the aircraft, and that's what ends Part 1. Part 2 starts with the group leaving for the temple, guided by Jin, and leaves Sawyer and Miles behind to bury Juliet. Sawyer didn't want to go and asked Miles to stay behind. Jack, Kate, Jin, and Hurley with Saeed make their way to the temple. The group enters the temple via a hole at the base of the wall. Inside, they find a skeleton missing an arm and take the skeleton's book, which is a French book. While making their way through the tunnels beneath the temple, Kate and Jack hear whispers just before the entire group is captured by the others. Back to our flash sideways, Kate talks the marshal into letting her go to the bathroom, where she attempts to pick the handcuffs with the pen she pickpocketed from Jack. When the marshal discovers the spring from the pen on the floor, he demands that she come out, and Kate shoves open the bathroom stall door, pushing him down and causing him to hit his head on the sink, knocking him unconscious. Kate escapes with the marshal's gun and coat, but is seen by two women who enter the restroom and call for help as Kate tells them that he had tried to attack her. Kate runs into an elevator and finds Sawyer inside. Sawyer notices her handcuffed wrist, despite Kate's attempt at concealment with the marshal's coat. Then we have two TSA employees come on the elevator and are alerted there's been a security issue. Sawyer correctly presumes Kate is involved. The next time the elevator door opens, Sawyer holds the door open and says, "Ladies first," so Kate can get away before the TSA employees realize who they're looking for. After Juliet is buried, Sawyer orders Miles to communicate with her in order to find out what important news she wanted to give him. After a brief communication with Juliet, Miles tells Sawyer her message was, "It worked." So it worked meaning that when she destroyed the bomb or did whatever she did, that now they're living their lives if the island never happened. That's my interpretation. Back to our flash sideways, Jack is paged to an Oceanic Airlines desk where a company representative informs him that his father's coffin apparently was not put onto the plane in Sydney and that they are uncertain of its current location. Jack is highly upset at this development, complaining that the funeral is supposed to take place in 2 hours. They have reached the temple. The others have taken our group to the temple, where they meet Dugan, the Japanese leader of this particular group, who talks through his interpreter, Lennon, I think it's Lennon. Cindy informs her fellow others that Hurley and the crew were on Oceanic Flight 815, as was she. She doesn't seem at all flustered when Dugan orders them to be shot. Hurley quickly tells Dugan that Jacob sent him and told him to bring the guitar case. The guitar case is open. It reveals a large wooden Egyptian symbol representing life, immortality, and divine protection. And then inside is Dugan breaks it open, and inside is a piece of paper. Dugan reads it and asks for each of their names. Hurley demands to know what the paper says, and Lennon tells him that the temple dwellers will all be in trouble if Saeed dies. Back to our flash sideways, Jin and Sun attempt to go through customs with the officials, or the officials are frustrated at their language barrier. They find the watch Jin is transporting and failing to understand it as a business gift. Continuing to search his bag, finding a pouch containing stacks of undeclared cash, the agent leads Jin away for questioning. And then another agent advises Sun referring to her by her maiden name, that if she knows some English and can explain, it would help clear things up, but Sun appears not to be able to understand. The others bring Saeed into the temple, where a large spring bubbles in the center. Lennon comments that the spring is not running clearly. Dugan approaches the water, cuts his hands, and then submerges it in the water, the blood, noting that the water did not heal it. After informing Jack that there are risks, Dugan orders his followers to submerge Saeed in the water and turns over an hourglass. As Saeed appears to be revived at this point, Dugan refuses to allow his followers to lift Saeed out of the water until the timer is finished. It soon appears that Saeed is drowning. Jack protests, but when he tries to stop them, he is prevented. After the last sand grain falls, Saeed is lifted lifeless from the water. Dugan announces to the shock group that your friend is dead, but Jack still tries to perform CPR, and Dugan leaves the survivors alone to mourn Saeed's death. Saeed's dead now to you? Really? Back to our flash sideways. Once on the elevator and in baggage claim, Kate notices airport employees looking for her. Kate sneaks into the employees-only area, which she uses to get outside without having to use the main doors. From there, Kate tries to get into a cab. However, she is told by an angry Neil Frogert that there is a line, so she gets in the line behind Hurley. When Edward Morris sights her, Kate hops back into an already occupied cab and demands the driver to leave at gunpoint. Sitting behind Kate in the back seat of the cab is Claire. We haven't seen Claire for a while. Season 4, I want to say. I guess she might have had a highlight. Did she have season 5? I can't remember. I don't think so. I think she was gone all of season 4, but I could be wrong on that. I think the last time we saw her was when in the flash forward scene where Kate saw her as a hallucination in Aaron's room. Anyway, Cindy enters the temple along with Zach and Emma. Those were the kids from the original plane crash from season 1. And I think we saw them again in season 2. And they're, from the tail section. They are bringing the survivors some food. Miles and an unconscious Sawyer are also brought to the temple at this point after being captured by the others in the jungle. Hurley visits Dugan, where it is revealed that he does understand English, but refuses to speak it as he dislikes the way it tastes on his tongue. After a brief conversation, Hurley reveals that Jacob is dead, which shocks Dugan and Lennon, who rushes out of the room. The two order issues on to the rest of the others, who hurriedly pour lines of ash around the temple, barricade the entrances, and launch a rocket flare. Lennon reveals that they are not keeping the survivors in, but rather keeping him out. Ben, noticeably shocked, finally manages to ask the man in black, "What are you?" He only answers that he is not a what, but a who. The man in black then tells Ben that John Locke was very confused when Ben killed him, and his last thought was, "I don't understand." As Ben grapples with these revelations, the man in black goes on explaining how sad and pathetic John Locke's life was. He continues that Locke's only redeeming virtue is to have been the only one of the Oceanic 815 survivors not to want to go back to their worthless pre-island life, but rather stay on the island. He finishes his speech to Ben by reflecting on the irony of the situation because, unlike Locke, he wants to go home. While waiting in the temple spring room, Hurley and Miles sit near Saeed's body. As Hurley says goodbye to his friend, Sawyer awakens. He tells Kate that he doesn't plan to kill Jack because he deserves to suffer on this rock just like the rest of us. Back to our flash sideways, Jack speaks back and forth on a cell phone with his mother, who apparently never wanted to hold the funeral directly after his body is transported safely. However, Jack says he just wanted to get it over with soon and explains the rest of the situation to her. Jack meets John Locke, who is finishing up filling out paperwork on his case of knives, which the airline has also misplaced. Jack tells Locke Oceanic 815 lost his father because they can't find his coffin. Locke tells Jack Oceanic has no idea where Jack's dad is. The airline lost his dad's body, not his dad. Seemingly grateful to hear this perception of the ordeal, Jack notices Locke's condition and asks him about it. "My condition is irreversible." Locke says nothing is irreversible. Jack replies, demonstrating a noticeably different attitude than the Jack who boarded Oceanic 815 in the regular timeline. He offers a free consultation, gives him his business card, and holds the door open for Locke to wheel out. And then we have flares from the temple are seen from the beach as Ben and the Man in Black leave the statue. The remaining others lift their guns to shoot at the Man in Black, but are promptly halted by Richard from taking action. Richard confronts the Man in Black, who responds to Richard that it's good to see you out of those chains. Richard is stunned and replies, you, indicating some familiarity with the Man in Black. The Man in Black responds, me, and knocks Richard out, hoisting him onto his shoulder. He turns to the rest of the others, including Son and Frank Lapidus, and shouts angrily that he is very disappointed with all of you before making his way past the real John Locke's body. And then we also have Lennon enters and asks to speak to Jack in private, but Jack argues and scuffles with the others. The fight is interrupted by when all present are shocked to see Saeed sit up, very much alive. He pauses, confused, and asks, what happened? And that's what ends this episode of Lost, this 2-part premiere. So, really good episode. I liked it a lot. I'm going to give it a 9.0 out of 10. Lots of good character performances in this episode. Sawyer and Jack were really good. Dugan, Kate, and of course we lost Juliet in this episode, unfortunately. Wish that character would have stayed or stuck around and stayed on the show. And then we had some returning characters like Boone, Charlie, Marshall Mars, Cindy, the 2 children, Claire, and Arts. So, really good episode, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But that's all I have to say about it. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are on this episode of Lost. What would you rate it, and who would be your character of the episode, and anything else that you want to add as additional. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get over 100,000 subscribers. Yes, I know I set my goals high. Join the team, share your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.